All right, today we're diving into a really strange and honestly beautiful story. It's a parable called The Eternal Sculptor, and it's all about art, purpose, and what it really means to create something that's just meant to disappear. And that's a heck of an idea to start with, right? I mean, imagine dedicating your entire life to making something magnificent, knowing, and not just knowing, but wanting it to completely vanish. This is the very heart of the story we're about to explore. Okay, so this is where our story kicks off, with this fascinating paradox. We meet an artist, we learn about his, let's say, unusual choice of material, and we see a public that is just completely captivated by how temporary his work is. So you have to picture this. In a culture that values permanence above everything else, we're talking art that's meant to outlast generations. Our sculptor makes this incredibly radical choice. He just rejects tradition completely and chooses ice, maybe the most temporary medium you could possibly imagine, for his entire life's work. It's a huge challenge to everything his society believes in. And at first, people love it. They are absolutely fascinated. But they don't see an artist who's embracing decay, they see a hero. They kind of romanticize his suffering, right? His shivering body, his frozen hands. They see it as this noble fight against the inevitable. To them, he's a symbol of the human spirit raging against the dying of the light. The thing is, they've totally missed the point. And this right here, this gets to the core of what was really going on. The sculptor wasn't struggling against anything. He was working with it. He found this secret, almost dark satisfaction in knowing that the more perfect his sculpture became, the closer it was to just disappearing forever. He was, in a way, in love with the void. But as you can probably guess, an artist who is dedicated to nothingness is bound to run into some friction with a world that's obsessed with, ownership and profit. And this is where the story really starts to turn. So here we see this classic conflict, right? Art versus commerce, and it's all personified by this curator character. For the curator, the melting ice is just a marketing gimmick. It's a ticking clock to sell more tickets. But for the sculptor, the melting is the art. That slow, quiet process of dissolving into nothing, that's the whole point. It's something sacred and private. So the curator's meddling feels like a total violation of his deepest beliefs. This timeline really shows you just how quickly public taste can change. His moment in the spotlight was, it was fleeting. As the culture shifted to valuing these new, permanent steel structures, his temporary ice art was suddenly seen as old news, obsolete. He goes from being the main event in a grand gallery to a forgotten relic, literally shoved into a refrigerated crate in the back of a market. And yet, it's strange, but in this isolation, he almost seems to find what he was looking for all along. Away from the crowds, away from the curator, he's finally alone with his creation in its purest form. His work becomes this frantic, private obsession, a true communion with his chosen medium, as it just wastes away in the dark. And so, we come to the climax of the parable. In these last quiet moments, hidden away from the entire world, the real reason for his lifelong obsession is finally about to come out. Now think about this. It's not a grand audience or a famous critic who witnesses his end. It's a simple market sweeper. This detail is so important. The one person who discovers his secret is someone from the everyday world that he tried so hard to retreat from. And that puddle seeping out from under the crate, it's the first clue that the performance is finally over. And there it is, the great confession. With a voice that sounds like cracking ice, he finally reveals the truth. It was never about some philosophical love for the temporary. It was about fear, a deep, profound fear of the permanent, of anything solid and lasting. To put it another way, his entire life's work wasn't an embrace of the void, but a flight from substance. He chose ice not because he loved watching it disappear, but because he was terrified of the weight and the responsibility of stone. Permanence felt like a commitment, like a kind of death he just couldn't face. Which brings us to the final act. With the sculptor gone, what fills the void that he leaves behind? Well, the answer is swift, it's practical, and it's completely unsentimental. This is such a stark and powerful image, isn't it? The cold, quiet, contemplative space where his art once was is immediately replaced by its polar opposite, a roaring, life-giving furnace. The transition is just brutal. There's no monument, no plaque, just practical, necessary heat. I mean, this slide just makes the contrast crystal clear. The sculptor's art was all about negation, about isolation, about looking inward. The furnace is the exact opposite. It's about community, survival, and immediate shared benefit. It doesn't require any interpretation. It simply provides warmth. And this brings us to the central irony of this story. The sculptor saw himself as a martyr for his art, but his sacrifice was really a profound act of selfishness. It was a rejection of life itself. His real tragedy wasn't that his beautiful work vanished. It's that he used its vanishing as an excuse to never really connect with the solid, warm, messy world of other people.
And this is the story's final powerful moral. An art that's based on denial and negation will, eventually, be consumed by existence. Life, in all its practical, warmth-seeking reality, is always going to win. The market vendors didn't need a philosophical statement, they just needed to stay warm.
So, we're left with this question. A question for you, really. Do we see his life's work as this profound artistic achievement, a perfect representation of nothingness? Or was it all just a tragic waste? The leftover evidence of a man who was just too afraid to join the world, to feel its heat, and to build something that might actually last. That's what this parable leaves us to think about.